25,000 men against 3,000. 6,000 against 1,400. 400 warships against a river. Every commander on the winning side already knew how this would end. Every one of them was wrong. 5 times in history, an empire walked onto a battlefield with everything. Better weapons, better training, better numbers, and walked away humiliated. Not by luck, not by strength, by doing the one thing the bigger army never expected. Some of these you'll know, some you've never heard of. I'm Doodles of War. Let's start with the one that broke Rome. In September of the year 9, 3 Roman legions marched into northern Germania. The 17th, the 18th, the 19th. Somewhere between 14 and 20,000 men, plus servants, wives, and children following behind. They were not marching to war. They were marching home for winter. Their commander, Publius Quinctilius Varus, had a trusted advisor, a Germanic chieftain named Arminius. Arminius had grown up in Rome. He held Roman citizenship. He had served as an officer in Rome's own auxiliary forces. He knew exactly how a legion marched, how it camped, how it fought. Rome had taught him everything. There had been a warning. Arminius's own father-in-law, a Germanic noble loyal to Rome, went to Varus directly. He told him Arminius was planning a betrayal. Varus dismissed it as a family quarrel. And this is the part most people miss. This ambush was not improvised. Archaeological work at the site shows preparation that took the entire summer. Arminius had been building this trap for months while eating at Varus's table. Arminius brought Varus a report. A small uprising, a short detour, easily handled. Varus turned the column off the road. Now you are a legionary in that column. The path narrows. On your left, bog. On your right, a wooded slope you cannot see into. The rain is heavy enough that your shield is slick. The column stretches so far behind you that you cannot see where it ends. You have trained your entire life to fight in formation, shoulder to shoulder. There is no room here to form anything. The attack came from both sides at once. It did not last an afternoon. It lasted from the 8th of September to the 11th. 4 days, strung out along a road, cut apart section by section. Between 16 and 20,000 Romans died. Varus killed himself on the field. In Rome, the Emperor Augustus is said to have stopped shaving and beaten his head against a door, shouting for Varus to give him back his legions. The 17th, 18th, and 19th were never rebuilt. Rome had those numbers. Rome never used them again. Rome lost 3 legions to a man they had trained themselves. 1,800 years later, an empire with rifles would lose an army to men carrying spears. January 1879, Southern Africa. A British column camps at the foot of a mountain called Isandlwana, roughly 1,800 men. Martini Henry rifles that fire 12 rounds a minute. 2 artillery pieces. Their commander, Lord Chelmsford, does not order the wagons drawn into a defensive circle. He does not order entrenchments. Against men with spears, he does not think he needs them. Then he takes half his force and marches out to find the Zulu army. He is looking in the wrong direction. 20,000 Zulu warriors are already less than 10 miles away, hidden in a valley, waiting. At 10:30, Colonel Anthony Durnford rides into camp with 500 more men. Durnford outranks Pauline, the officer left in charge. By army custom, command should pass to him. He declines to take it. Chelmsford had left no written order saying who was in charge of what. So for the rest of that morning, the camp has 2 senior officers and no clear commander. Both of them will be dead by mid-afternoon. A British scouting party rides over a ridge and looks down. 20,000 men are sitting in the valley below them, in silence. The Zulu had not planned to attack that day. Now they have been seen. There is nothing left to wait for. You are in the firing line when they come over the ridge. And at first, you are winning. 12 rounds a minute, shells bursting in the mass ranks. The Zulu center stalls. Some of them break and shelter behind the hill. But the Zulu are not attacking as one mass. They are moving in a formation they learned from hunting. The horns of the buffalo. The chest holds you in front. The horns run wide left and right and close behind you. Your firing line is stretched thin to cover more ground. It is also a long way from the ammunition wagons. The horns meet behind the camp. At 29 minutes past 2, a partial solar eclipse crossed the sky and the light went out. Within 30 minutes, the field was lost. Of nearly 1,750 men in that camp, fewer than 60 Europeans got out. Over 1,300 dead. It remains the worst defeat a British army ever suffered against a force armed with spears. After Isandlwana, British regiments stopped carrying their colors into battle. Chelmsford lost because he divided his army and assumed he had time. 300 years earlier, a Japanese warlord lost for the opposite reason. He had every advantage, and he stopped to celebrate. Imagawa Yoshimoto is marching for Kyoto with 25,000 men. It is June 1560. He controls 3 provinces. He intends to take the capital and the country with it. Standing between him and Kyoto is a minor warlord with somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 men. His name is Oda Nobunaga. The odds are roughly 10 to 1. It starts exactly the way everyone expects. Imagawa's vanguard takes Nobunaga's border forts at Washizu and Marune in a morning. Nobunaga's eastern defenses are gone by noon. Yoshimoto halts his main army in a narrow wooded gorge called Okehazama to rest. And here they do something that seems reasonable at the time. They stop to hold the head viewing ceremony, the ritual inspection of enemy heads taken that morning. There is sake. There is food. The afternoon is brutally hot. Men take their armor off. 25,000 men in a narrow gorge celebrating a victory that is 4 hours old. Nobunaga knows this ground. He grew up on it. A thunderstorm breaks over the valley, heavy enough that the Imagawa men huddle under trees, heavy enough to cover the sound of an army moving. You are with Nobunaga's 2,000, waiting at the edge of the gorge for the rain to stop. When the clouds clear, he raises his spear. Yoshimoto hears fighting outside his headquarters enclosure. He assumes his own men have started a drunken brawl. He steps out of his tent and shouts at them to stop it and get back to their posts. Then he sees that the samurai in front of him are not his. He fights. He cuts clean through the shaft of a spear thrust at him. It is not enough. Yoshimoto is killed. Every senior officer in his army dies with him but 2. 25,000 men simply stop being an army. One of the lords who switched sides that day was a young man named Matsudaira Motoyasu. He later changed his name to Tokugawa Ieyasu and ruled Japan for 2.5 centuries. Nobunaga won because the bigger army stopped paying attention. The next empire on this list never stopped paying attention. It lost anyway. By 1260, the Mongol Empire had done something no one had ever done. It had taken Baghdad. It had taken Aleppo. It had taken Damascus. The armies that tried to stop it had all failed the same way. They formed up. The Mongols shot them apart with composite bows from horseback. And it ended. Then something happened, 5,000 kilometers away. The Great Khan died. Mongol custom required the senior princes to return home for the council that chose the next ruler. Hulagu, commanding in the Middle East, turned around and took the bulk of his army east with him. The empire was so large that a death in Mongolia emptied a battlefield in Syria. What was left behind was still a Mongol army, just a much smaller one. In December, 6,000 Mongol horsemen rode back into Syria under a commander named Baidar. Cairo did not send an army to meet them. The Mamluk Sultan was not there. What met them was a coalition scraped together by 2 minor local princes, the Emir of Homs and the Emir of Hama, plus whatever Aleppo's surviving officers could bring. 1,400 men against 6,000. The Mongols formed up in 8 blocks, 1,000 men in front, the rest stacked behind. You are in the coalition line. You can count them. They outnumber you more than 4 to 1. The details of what happened next are thin. This battle left fewer records than it deserved. What the sources agree on is the shape of it. The smaller force split into 3, held the center, and worked the flanks. On the 10th of December, near the tomb of an Arab general 6 centuries dead, the Mongol army broke. Losses on the Mongol side were heavy. The survivors rode east and did not come back that year. Nobody made a legend out of this one. There is no famous painting of Homs. Most people who know the Mongols have never heard the name. But it happened in the same year the Mongols lost their first great battle in the Middle East, and it made the same point twice. The Mongols could be beaten by people nobody was watching. 28 years later, on the other side of Asia, someone would beat them with wood. Kublai Khan's third invasion of Dai Viet. The kingdom that is now northern Vietnam. The year is 1288. The Yuan fleet in the river system numbers around 400 vessels. Their commander is a general the Vietnamese records call O Ma Ni. Dai Viet had already given up its capital. The court had evacuated. On paper, this was over, but the Vietnamese commander, Tran Hung Dao, was not fighting for the capital. First, a Vietnamese force found the Yuan supply fleet and burned it. 70 ships of food gone. The UN army sitting in the captured capital began to starve. With no supplies coming, they had to go home. And to go home, the fleet had to sail back down the Bach Dang River. Months earlier, in March, Tran Hung Dao had started preparing that river. His men drove thousands of hardwood stakes into the riverbed, tipped with iron. At high tide, the point sat just under the surface, invisible. He was not inventing this. He was copying it. 350 years earlier, a Vietnamese commander named Ngo Quyen had used the same trick on the same river. The stakes are still there. Archaeologists pulled ironwood poles out of the mud near Haiphong in 2019. 700 years underground, and you can still see where they were sharpened. You are on one of the small Vietnamese boats that morning. Your job is not to win. Your job is to be annoying. Dart in, provoke, pull back. Keep them here. And here is the part that decided it. The Yuan commanders suspected an ambush. They had been in this country long enough to expect one. So they were careful. They did not commit. They held position and watched. Being careful cost them everything. Every minute they waited, the tide went out. The stakes came up out of the water underneath them. 400 ships, pinned in a river, with the way back to the sea blocked by Vietnamese warships and fireboats coming downstream. O Ma Ni was taken alive. 5 battles, 9 centuries apart. Nothing in common. Different weapons, different continents, different centuries. Except this. In every one of them, the stronger side already knew how it would end. They knew it in that German forest, on that African hillside, in that Japanese gorge, on that Syrian plain, and on that Vietnamese river. That was the weapon used against them. If you want one of these 5 told properly, an entire video, one battle, all the way down, tell me which one in the comments.